Hello, friends, and welcome back to Malicious Compliance Stories. Today's story is a delicious lesson in corporate karma and malicious compliance done right. But before we begin, best way to support our channel is to leave comments, like, and subscribe with the turned-on bell so you don't miss the new video every single day. Here we go. No promotion equals less work, same pay. I work for a passenger boat company. We have 3 tasks while on board: secure the boats for embarking and disembarking, keep an eye out for safety and order, and check tickets and issue fines. A few years ago, the company asked some of the senior staff to temporarily switch to ticket inspector for high season with the promise to move permanently within a year. Inspectors get a higher pay and only do one task, which is checking tickets and issue fines, a thing that we're already required to do, so many of us say yes, gladly. At the end of the season, our reps contact us and say that we have performed well, so the company's having an examination for our promotion. We say we were assured we would be promoted no matter what. Meanwhile, there's a batch of recent hires who have personal ties with the union and the higher-ups. They aren't very happy with their working conditions. It's a rather tough job, especially in the winter or in bad weather, and they often find ways to be dispensed from service or apply for desk jobs and easily obtain them, even if unnecessary or redundant. Now, we don't have much choice, so we agree to the exam, and surprise, surprise, pretty much nobody makes the cut. They had to promote 2 because they knew they got perfect scored, despite the exam being for a job that some of us have been doing for decades. At this point, the company has no choice but to look for qualified people among the more recent hires, and wouldn't you know, pretty much all of those who belong to that category immediately pass. Now the key detail. After we were failed, we were notified with a letter saying we were unfit for the duties of ticket inspector. The malicious compliance. We took those words to the letter and we stopped performing the tasks of ticket inspectors, which had been part of our job for years. Either we're fit for a job or we are unfit. We brought our letter with us, and the first few times supervisors tried to write us up for failing to check the tickets, we promptly produced our very much official dispensation. Not only this decreased our workload immensely, letting us breeze through even the tougher shifts with ease and generally turning our job into a quite pleasant one, but it cost the company a pretty buck in terms of lost revenue, the fines we don't issue, the greater pay gap they had to fill by using juniors instead of seniors, and the rehiring and retraining of those who still drop out of that job because it's still outdoor work, and some of the people who they hired just weren't suited for it. Now the supervisors don't even bother with us anymore, and I have that rejection letter in a box with other dear memories, like my old D&D character sheets. Edit. I forgot the cherry on top. A couple of months later, their timetable was modified, having them take service at 5 a.m. twice a week. There's no way I could have kept that up. I worked late shifts for most of my career. Dodge that bullet. Never understand why companies do this. Pay the people like OP here who clearly give a crap about the job and are passionate the promised raises and keep good people in the business. So short-sighted. And our second story. Regular from my work thinks I work everywhere, apparently. Sorry for how long this is, but I literally still think about this all the time. Mostly because I still see this woman and she pretends like this never happened. I live in a fairly big city, so it's kind of unfortunate that I keep bumping into this woman, who I have to say I'm not too fond of. I work in a gift/curiosity shop. Think candles, tarot cards, and fancy overpriced bars of soap in an older, affluent neighborhood of my city. Customer X comes into the gift shop quite regularly and always has a million questions and is the kind of customer that no matter how busy you are, demands all the attention be on her. Now our shop is fairly small, so literally everywhere you turn, there's this woman. Fine, whatever. She's kind of rude, but manageable, and she always spends a decent amount of money, so... Now, it's important to note that Customer X has a small dog. We'll call this dog Pickles. It's the cutest dog. The second Customer X enters the store, she drops Pickles' leash and goes about her business, leaving Pickles to do whatever Pickles' little heart desires. Sometimes it's just come and sit next to me and get pets. Sometimes it's not. Again, it's not a big store. Doesn't really matter. Pickles can't really get into too much trouble. I like the dog. Flash forward to our I don't work here story. One day I'm shopping at a well-known clothing store, the kind with levels and elevators, a real unit of a clothing store clear across the city. While I'm looking at some sweaters, I feel a cold little nose press up against my leg, and when I look down, guess who I see? You betcha it was Pickles, tail wagging, leash trailing behind them, customer X nowhere to be seen. I think to myself, I know this dog. I don't really want to bump into customer X. I'm certain she'll recognize me. We've interacted multiple times at this point. But Pickles is old and this was a big store, so I scooped the dog up and I set off to find customer X. After too much searching, it turns out customer X was on a completely other level than we were, meaning either A, this old Springer Spaniel somehow went up 2 escalators by herself, or B, this woman straight up does not give a hoot and left her dog on a random floor of a clothing store. Who does that? I tried to say a friendly hello to customer X, something along the lines of, "Hey, I was shopping and I recognized your dog," and before I could even remind her where she knew me from and that it's not weird I brought her dog, customer X hits me with, "Do you have this shirt in another size? I hate this color. Why don't you have any different styles of this pant?" I was so taken aback by what I can only describe as the audacity of this bee that I could only muster a polite, "I actually don't work here. I work at other store." To which she responded, "Well, can you go ask somebody for a different size?" I was more than happy to say, "No. I honestly really wish you'd just taken Pickles home and given her a happy life full of pets, treats, and OMG, I'm not getting abandoned in a multi-level store." That's wild. Customer X needs a good smack upside the head. And our last story. She tried to claim my parents' house as her own. We took it back. Backstory. My parents had worked tirelessly for many years to secure their dream property, a house with beautiful views and a large piece of land. After my older siblings left for college, my parents realized the large house felt too big for just the 2 of them, so they decided to sell it but keep part of the land. They built a smaller house on the remaining land, and that became their home, although they always planned to use the larger house as a summer retreat after they retired. Fast forward a few years, my parents moved 2 hours away and rented out the house to make extra money to help with taxes and the mortgage. They found a renter named Karen and her boyfriend who seemed like a good fit at the time. The rental agreement was clear. My parents planned to retire in that house and would need it back eventually, but they'd give Karen ample notice if they ever needed to take it back. At first, Karen was a decent tenant, paying rent on time and living quietly. But as the years went by, things started to change. Over time, she became more difficult, and my dad started receiving bounce-back checks. The once good tenant became unreliable with payments, and eventually she started thinking that the house was her permanent home. The biggest problem? Karen had no intentions of ever leaving. Not only did she stop paying rent on time, but she began making wild claims about the house, saying that after 12 years of renting, the house belonged to her. She argued that since she'd lived there so long and taken care of the place, which in reality she hadn't, she deserved ownership. When my dad tried to explain that it was still his property, Karen threw a fit and threatened to take him to court. My dad, who didn't like conflict, decided to hire a lawyer to make sure everything was handled properly. After meeting with Karen and showing her the lease agreement, Karen had no case. The house was still my dad's and the rental agreement was still valid. Despite the fact that she was completely in the wrong, Karen was allowed to continue living there under a new, clearer lease agreement that outlined the rental terms, including strict clauses about her responsibility to pay rent on time. Fast forward to the summer of 2021, when things finally came to a head. It all started in late June when my dad got a call from Karen's representative. She informed him that she was giving 1 month's notice because of some financial issues. While my dad was surprised by the short notice, he didn't think much of it. After all, they'd waited for years to get the house back, and they'd made plans for its future use. The idea of finally taking back the house seemed like a long-awaited victory. But Karen had other plans. As the end of July approached, Karen called and asked for an additional week to move out. She claimed she couldn't find anyone to help her move. My parents, being understanding, agreed to the extension and expected her to move out by August 3rd. However, when my parents arrived on August 4th, they were greeted by an unexpected sight. Karen's things were still in the house. Not only that, but there was a sign in the driveway advertising a garage sale. My parents were shocked and confused. This was clearly not part of the deal. When they knocked on Karen's door, she acted as though she hadn't even realized it was time to move out. "Oh, I meant to call, but I didn't get around to it," she told them, offering a half-hearted excuse. The audacity of it all. My parents were both furious, but agreed to give her one more week to finish moving out, while also making it clear that the full rent would still be expected for the time she overstayed. A week later, my parents received confirmation from a neighbor that Karen had finally moved out. Despite the many setbacks, my parents felt relief. The house was theirs again. But when they finally made the trip to check the house's condition, they were a bit stunned by the state of things. To their surprise, Karen had left the house in much better condition than expected. The house was clean, there was still plenty of work to do, the yard needed significant attention, and my parents were excited to tackle the landscaping and remodeling projects they'd been planning for years. As my parents started cleaning and sorting through their belongings that had been stored in the house, they began envisioning the renovations they'd wanted to do for so long. The land was overgrown and the trees were blocking the stunning views they'd once enjoyed from the kitchen. My dad rolled up his sleeves and got to work clearing the trees and fixing the landscaping. He even bought a new lawn tractor, something that gave him the kind of excitement only a new tool could bring. Despite the challenges Karen had put my parents through over the years, they were thrilled to finally have the house back. My dad painted the walls, cleared some of the land, and my brother helped with some of the heavy lifting. Even though it wasn't perfect yet, the dream of their retirement home was slowly coming true. It wasn't just about the house, it was about taking back control of something they had always wanted. Karen's hold on the property was over, the house was finally free from her grip. While it had taken longer than expected, my parents were determined to make the most of the situation. With the summer house back in their hands, they were able to move forward with plans they'd put on hold for years. The fresh coat of paint on the walls, the cleared trees, and the work on the yard were all signs that they were starting a new chapter. I was expecting this to be some long, dragged-out process where Karen gets the law involved and ultimately gets shut down, but this was nice and quiet. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.